Woo!
What's going on, everybody? This is Joe from Relentless Angling. Got a Hatchery winter steelhead here. Going to show you guys how I fillet it and how I process it. First thing that's really key when you're filleting any fish, whether it's a steelhead, salmon, trout, is have a good sharp knife. I just sharpened this knife on my Benchmade knife sharpener. So, again, this is a Hatchery winter steelhead. So we're going to start with the dorsal fin, removing that. I'm going to go ahead and remove this anal fin. I'm going to come just behind the gill plate here and remove the head. And there's multiple ways to fillet a fish. This is just how I do it. I'm going to go ahead and flip the fish over. Got a broken through on that side cleanly, as you can see there. And do the exact same cut on the underside. Alright, so header's removed. I'm going to go ahead and set it over there. So, you know, you're filleting a fish, it's going to get slimy and gross. It's just part of it. So I like to wipe off my knife. Sometimes I'll wipe off my hand and the fish just so it's easier to handle. Doesn't slide us around as much. Alright, so right here you can see the spine. So what I do is I take my fillet knife and I go just above that spine. I'm going to go ahead and push through this fish. Staying along the spine all the way through. It's really important to me to try to utilize as much of these fish as possible. I mean, obviously, killed it, I want to use it. So there's the first fillet there. And with the bottom fillet, I'm going to do the same thing, just find that spine, but instead of going on top, I'm going to go on the bottom. Just stay along that spine the whole way through. Alright, there's the two fillets. Like I mentioned just a minute ago, I really like to use as much of the fish as I can. You can use more than what I use, but we have chickens, we have dogs, so I'll take the spine here. You can see there's quite a bit of meat left on the spine. And I'll remove as much of that meat as I can. Like this whole strip in here. This would actually, I mean, it's not just dog or chicken food, that's for sure. This would be delicious. You can take this entire spine, just throw it on your barbecue, let it cook, and then just pick it apart. I've done that before. It's really tasty. It's fun for kids to do, just to kind of have that, you know, primitive eating with their fingers and just picking meat off. A little salt and pepper. But if you've got chickens or dogs like I do, it's great to have this different protein option for either one of them. So of course with dogs, you gotta make sure you cook it thoroughly because you don't want your dog to get salmon poisoning, okay? So you still could get more off this. You could still cook this and just pick it apart, but that's as far as I'm gonna go today. And then with the head, as you can see in the head here, there's still big chunks of meat. So I'll kind of just go inside here, get what I can out of there. You could actually just cut these collars away and barbecue or smoke them as well. Like that's the spine. There's a little bit of meat left in here, so you could just cook this whole thing and pick it apart. But again, that's what I'm going to do today. So this is all my scraps left over from my chickens and my dogs. This carcass will go in the freezer for either crab bait or just compost. And then here's the fillets that I've got. And the next step on these fillets will be to remove the rib bones. So I'm going to go ahead and get this blade another little sharpen. So this is a hen, it's a winter hen. She was actually in pretty dang good shape considering it's February. So I'm gonna do the best I can to remove these rib bones without losing a bunch of meat. So I'm gonna cook one of these fillets this evening. I'll leave the rib bones on because honestly, after you cook it, you can just peel them back. And then I think you get all the fat and everything that's in this membrane here and it cooks into the meat, it's just extra flavor. But I'm gonna vacuum seal one of these fillets as well. So I wanna make sure that I get those rib bones off to prevent any potential punctures in my vacuum sealer bag after I've sealed it up and put it in the freezer. That's the last thing anybody wants is freezer burnt fish. So find that ledge of these rib bones here, try to go along them. This is, like, in my opinion, this is probably the hardest part of filleting a fish, right? Is like, first of all, this is the best meat right here, this belly meat. So you don't want to waste a bunch of it. But it's also the most challenging because of the rib bones, just where they're at. If you fillet from the spine down, if you're really good at it, you can take these rib bones off with that method and not lose any meat, but I've also seen people do that and just totally butcher a fish. So it all takes practice. It all takes mistakes. You gotta do it a few times, screw it up. Like, oh man, I just totally screwed that up. And then, you know, learn from your mistakes. But just get comfortable with your method and just keep working on it. This is the method I'm most comfortable with. All right, well, so here's those rib bones. As you can see, there's hardly any meat left on there. Like I mentioned earlier, this is a hen, so she's got some fairly thin belly walls. This is the finished product of my fillet. Probably could have gone a little less shallow here. I mean, that's a tough stretch, tough sell because, I mean, I don't know. But I'll be able to seal this without worrying about any puncture holes from the rib bones. I'll cook this fillet up tonight with this membrane and ribs attached, not being concerned about the ribs poking a hole in a vacuum sealer bag. Anyhow, so that's it. That's really how I fillet a fish. I'm going to vacuum seal this. I'm going to cut it in multiple pieces and vacuum seal it, put it in the freezer. I'll label it, use it for further, use it in the future, maybe give it away to friends. So one thing I want to mention with these fillets, in any fish fillet, whether it's springer, trout, steelhead, well, at least salmonoid fillets, I'll put it that way, is this fin right here. This fish actually has a sea lion wound, but this fin right here, I really like to leave this on here, and a lot of people will cut that out, especially if you go to a grocery store and buy, you know, wild caught fish. You'll find this fin missing. I'm going to zoom in here. You can see just around here is a bunch of fat, and it's really delicious. I just don't want to cut it away and lose it. I want to utilize it and taste it, especially when I'm cooking the fish. So I encourage you guys to leave that fin on there and just see what you think. Like, put this piece of fish in an aluminum foil like pan you made by hand, do some salt and pepper, and watch that fat cook out of there, especially with spring Chinook or upriver bright fall Chinook, and you're really gonna enjoy it. So I've got the filet I'm gonna cook for dinner all ready to go on foil. And I like to just do something really simple, just salt and pepper. That's really, if you've got a decent, good filet of fish, all you need is salt and pepper. And I like to make this aluminum foil pan to cook the fish in, cook it on my Traeger. That way the pan keeps all the moisture in, and a really fatty fish, which winter steelhead is not really fatty, you can actually like baste the fat back over it. I'm all about that fat, if you haven't noticed. So fish has been on the Traeger for, I don't know, 20 minutes or so. Let's take a quick peek. Getting pretty close, I'd say, to being done. I'm gonna have to get my handy dandy spatula, this guy, and take a peek. Give it the old split and flake test. That's what I call it, split and flake. Looks a little moist still. I mean, sorry, smoke in my eye. I like it moist, but I want to make sure it's done. All right, so it appears that our steelhead is done. We'll see how it turns out. It is a winter steelhead. Let's take a peek here. Definitely appears to be cooked thoroughly. That's good. Food safety first. Food safety first. The door is closed. Not for you, Lizzie. Not for you, Bo. Alright, get me a piece of this belly meat. My favorite piece of the fish is belly. I did leave all the bones in this fish this time, which my family is complaining about. I usually remove pin bones, rib bones, etc. But today, to keep it real, I decided to leave them all in. So, give this a shot and see how it's tasting. I'm just gonna use my fingers because, I mean, I killed this fish with my bare hands. I might as well just eat it with my bare hands. That's delicious. Shake, gentle. The dogs like winter steelhead.